So now we are discussing about data analyst and BI. So for them, you should know SQL and Power BI. So Power BI people, that business intelligence people, build this kind of reports and dashboards. So here they need a very good communication because they are the end persons. They are the end person. You can see at the flow, these people are the end. So you should know very good tool called a BI, that is a Power BI. Very good. So you should create reports and dashboards, and also you should have a very good communication. Communication is generally it is for all. Communication तुमको आना ही चाहिए. Without communication you cannot survive in this, because you will have an client call, you will have meetings with client. If you do not have a good communication, you cannot survive in this IT industry. Okay, so when you're talking about BI, okay, you should know SQL. Definitely, without SQL, you cannot do anything. I told you where the SQL is used. Suppose if you have thousand, if you have 100 columns, and if you have 1 million records, and I don't want to fetch all the records in Power BI, because suppose let us imagine I have a data from 1980 to 2022. I don't want to do analysis from 1980. I want to do analysis only for 2 years. I want to create a report based on 2 years. So you need to know a SQL query, select few columns, 10, 15 columns from this table where your year should be greater than 2020. So that can be your SQL query. So once you write a SQL query, then you can fetch that data to Power BI, and in Power BI you can create reports and dashboards. So this is very much restricted, that what BI people do. Okay, they don't know exactly from where the data is coming. So the data is in your SQL database. Here you have tables, then it is fetched into Power BI. So E will be restricted only to these two tools, that is SQL and Power BI. But when you're talking about a data engineer, so you should know lot of things behind the scene. You should know what is cloud, few technologies on cloud. Cloud can be anything like Azure, AWS, GCP. I'm talking about specifically Azure, and these are all the services of Azure only. So you should know this ADF, that is Azure Data Factory. You can call this as ADF as a no code, or I specifically call as a low code. So low code service, you do not need much of the coding, but the basic of SQL is needed. Okay, definitely a basic of SQL is needed. That's why I am specifically talking about SQL. So without SQL, you cannot survive in this data world, because everything is data. Data is like a air, and you need to know the SQL if you want to work in this data field. And this icon is nothing but it is related to Azure Data Lake Storage. This is called a data lake. So what are data lake? What are database? What are data warehouse? What are data marts? What is data lake? All these terminologies we are going to see in our upcoming videos. So this is again the same data lake. Now this is your Databricks. So this is one of the new, you can call a new company used for transformation. So now what I personally feel that you can do a lot of transformation in this ADF also. Then why Databricks? So when it comes to an end-to-end pipeline, when you're creating a pipeline, most of the companies use ADF to copy the data. I'll give you a detailed understanding about that, to copy the data. And when it comes to Databricks, they use a Databricks to transform the data. And if you have a complex data like a nested JSON, a complex data where that cannot be done in ADF, that should be done in the Databricks. Okay, so I'll just give you a simple understanding. Let me clear all this, or let me copy these tools. One, two. Now let us understand what these technologies or these services do in an Azure data engineering. So this is an Azure data engineering. So I'll give you a simple understanding. I'll see you a simple scenario based example. Now let us take an example like a data is generating. So how the data is generating? It can be any of your mobile device that is generating your data, or it can be any sensor that is generating a data. By using an IoT, the data is generating. Okay, let us consider that a IoT device is there, Internet of Things, that is generating a data. Or you can take any mobile app that is generating a data. Okay, suppose there is a car company. Let us take any car company that is generating a data from the IoT also, like engine performance and all those things. So let us take an example of the same car company which is generating some data from the mobile. So some users are using the mobile app and they are using this one. And there are some databases that the data can be on premises in their own server, or the data can be on the cloud. So they can use various sources. These are called sources where the data comes from. So we are using one tool because the data is in different sources to get all data into one place. So we need to copy that data from IoT to a storage. So this is called as a storage account. So this is a storage account. This is called an actually this is called a data lake in Azure. So if you don't know about data lake, or if you have not done a demo, so watch my YouTube video. I have shown you how to create an ADLS account, that is Azure Data Lake Storage. Okay. So I want to put all my data together. Now you may notice that, hey, the data generating in IoT is not in a table format. It can be a JSON format. It is in a semi-structured format. The data which is coming from an mobile is an unstructured. It is in the mobile format, or someone is writing a comments that I cannot detect. So it is unstructured data. So if I ask you, can you build a reports on this? No, you cannot build a report because Power BI need most of the time a structured data. They always need a table to do the analysis. They need a table. But here we are not talking about table, we are talking about JSON file, we are talking about CSV file, we are talking about HTML files, all these things. So there is one tool in Azure that is called as ADF. So this is called Azure Data Factory. So what does ADF do? ADF can do ETL activity, ELT activity also. So I'll tell you one of the simple thing what ADF do. There are so many activities ADF can do. I'm telling you one activity what ADF can do, that is a copy activity. So it will fetch all the details from this source. It is like a factory. It is fetching all the details from the source, and it is creating a copy in your storage account. You can convert this all semi-structured, unstructured data to a structured data most of the time in ADF. So once you got your structured data in ADLS, that is your data lake, you can transfer it to, or you can just put it into SQL, or from ADF you can directly put it into the SQL server, a SQL database. Once your data in the SQL, you can connect to the Power BI, and this will create a good end-to-end pipeline. Now you may ask, like, then what is the use of this Databricks? So now when you talk about ADF, that is no code or a low code tool. If you have a complex data, as you look at the data size is increasing, the volume of data is increasing, the velocity of data is increasing, it is continuously flowing. If you want to do some streaming analysis, if you want to do some live analysis, so then most of the companies now they are relying on this Databricks. So this is called a Databricks. So what is Databricks? We will discuss in detail, or let please watch my YouTube videos on Databricks. We have a separate playlist on that. Okay, what is Databricks? So Databricks, you can, or a high level information on Databricks is you transform the data from an unstructured data to a structured data. So Databricks is relying on a tool called as Spark. So what is Spark? So I can call Spark is nothing but a big data framework or a big data tool that is used to solve the complex data problem. If you have any complex data problem, that can be solved with Spark. So where to run Spark? Okay, so you can run Spark on this Databricks. But actually Spark came from the Hadoop. So this Hadoop is one of the first, you can call first big data project or one of the oldest technology on big data. So when you are talking about big data, you need to know what is Hadoop, how the Hadoop works. So I have posted one video on what is Hadoop and what is Spark and what is Databricks. So you need to know some basics of Hadoop. On top of that, you need to know what is Spark. Then we talk about Databricks. So when you talk about Databricks, so in a high level, Databricks accepts 4 different languages, programming language. Definitely you should know SQL. In Databricks, we have SQL. You can go with Python. You can go with Scala or you can go with R also. So let me show you a demo on that. So I'm opening a Databricks account, community edition account. So don't worry about all this. We will discuss in detail. Suppose if I open any of my notebook or while creating a notebook at the very first time, it will ask you to please choose the language you want. So it is taking 4 different languages: Python, SQL, Scala, and R. So when it comes to programming language, for any data field, you should know SQL. Okay, because the basics of SQL you need in Hadoop, in ADF also, and the basics of SQL you need in Databricks also, and definitely you should know SQL when you are talking about a BI. Okay, so this, and there are lot many stuff, not only this. In cloud we use Synapse Analytics, we use app registration, we use Key Vault. There are so many other tools when it comes to cloud. So at a very high level, I'm telling you, you should know ADF. ADF can be learned without having a prior knowledge of coding also. If you say me that, sir, I don't know anything about Python, I don't know anything about programming language, can I start with ADF? You can start, but you should know some basic of language, any language. It may be SQL or it may be Python. Like what are the data types? How will you convert? What do you mean by data type? How will you convert from one data type to other data type? You should know the basic of that. Then storage account, no need of coding anything. It's just an storage account. Very simple. When it comes to Databricks, then you should know any of this language, any 2 of this language. The prerequisite or the mandatory language is SQL. SQL is mandatory. Then you should know any of these. So basic is sufficient, because if you know Python, we can go Python with Spark. Okay. So that is called a PySpark. Okay, so this is a high level understanding on the tools that are required for a data engineering and for BI also. Thank you guys, thank you for watching. So if you like the content, so please do subscribe to my channel and like the video also. Thank you again, keep learning.